I'd like to talk about a very interesting journey that's happened in my life. And I think this is really, really important because I've spent about 20 years working for some of the biggest communication companies around the world. I spent 8 years with Siemens, and I spent 12 years with BT, British Telecom. And then I decided to give all that up and decided to become a serial entrepreneur, and I've invested in a number of opportunities. And what I've realized is that everything I learned with regards to sales, I think they're really important when you're a startup, or whether you're a salesperson, or whether you're an employee, because I think you're always going to be selling, whether you're going to be going to your boss for a pay rise, whether you're going to be talking to a customer, or whether you're going to be talking to a supplier. I think it's extremely important. And everything that you're going to see in these slides has not come out of books. There are no videos. This is everything that I have learned, and I believe that this is a secretive ingredient that I hope that you can take back. Some parts are going to be relevant, some parts aren't, but I'm going to try and give you real examples of where I've actually used some of these tactics, because I think they are very important. So, I'm going to show you where you need to play, and I think that's a very, very important part. And I'm going to give you some real examples in that. And I think once I present that slide, it's going to become very relevant, and I'm sure that all the startups here are going to start realizing, and please do this, start asking yourselves, where do I sit in that box that Paul is talking about? I'm also going to give you the DNA of a true sales professional. And that's going to be really, really a bit of an eye-opener. The value proposition that your startups or any businesses that you work for today, in terms of what the attributes are that you have to bring out. The sales cycle, I think that's a really interesting journey. And I'm going to give you two examples. I'm going to show you traditionally what people do today, and I'm going to show you what the real professionals do. And these are the professionals, for example, that are either selling something very small or selling a Boeing 747 for about $100 million, or in my times in British Telecom, selling a $100 million managed service solution. I'm also going to talk about how you plan and the actual approach that you use and the tactics, how you actually work out who your suspects are or your prospects are, and then the common mistakes I believe a lot of salespeople actually make. And again, as I said, you're going to get real examples throughout the whole session. So this is an interesting slide. You got that mic? A mic? Can you? Hello? Okay. Now, as you can see on this particular slide, you can see that there's 4 stages. And I'm going to give you an example of each of the stages. So, for example, what is the intent? What is the focus where that salesperson is focusing on? What is the relationship that he's trying to build? And what is the value proposition? So I'll try and give you an example of British Telecom. I'll try and give you an example of BSNL. And I'll also give you an example of an e-commerce company. And then also try and figure out all the startups that are here where you think you fit within this space. Okay. So now think about this. BT or BSNL, when they go out and they sell, as far as they're concerned, they only want to be considered by the customer, because the customer only needs a telephone line. So as far as they're concerned, it's only about consideration and absolutely nothing else. The focus for them is it's either a commodity sale, and if it is a service, it's going to be a really, really simple service, and it's going to be nothing more than that. The relationship, it's probably a telephone relationship. It's extremely casual. I don't really care what you look like, but for me, I'm more interested in making sure I hit my target and I sell that one telephone line. And the value is I'm going to give you a product. When I come and plug that product in, you're going to be able to make a phone call. Now what happens is, We've installed a telephone line, but now we want to sell a telephone system. So I'm just moving up the value chain to give you a real example. Now what's happened is the focus of the salesperson has completely changed. It's probably a different salesperson. This particular salesperson really needs to think about the customer. He needs to make a sale because he's got a target. The target is completely different. The telephone system could be $5,000, it could be $1 million. So this time he's really, really interested in really understanding this customer. And the relationship is not going to be casual anymore. The relationship is going to be about how do I build trust? Because remember, that person is either going to part away with $10,000 or $100,000 or $1 million. And this time it's an application. So he's gone in there and he's really found out, why do you need a telephone system? What are the benefits? Is it that you need to transfer calls a lot faster? Is it that more calls are coming in? What happens when the calls can't be taken? Do they need to drop into a voicemail system, et cetera, et cetera? So he's now really getting to understand that business. Now what happens is it's become a bit intelligent because a company like BT has realized I need to hold on to that customer. And I've got to make sure that I have repeat sales. So I've installed a telephone line, I've installed a telephone system, and this particular customer may be looking for a different application, but the example I'm giving is video conferencing. So now the focus is on the competition. And a good example here would be Rolls-Royce. I remember in my days at BT, Rolls-Royce came along and said, we have 67 centers around the world. And that's when the recession hit. And what we need to do is we need to reduce our costs. And in order to reduce our costs, we believe that video conferencing is one of those applications that is really going to help us. So the second thing that we asked was, who is your competition? We obviously did that before we walked into that meeting. And it was Pratt & Whitney, who is the next engine maker. So what you're doing is you're figuring out who their competition is so that you can effectively add real value to their business. And the relationship here has got to be completely mutualistic. So you've really got to build a very strong relationship here, not just with one department, but with many, many different departments. So you're not just going to the IT department, but you have to build a relationship with the finance department. You have to build a relationship with the engineering department. How will this application benefit you? How do you currently use the documents that you currently have? How many people do you normally have in a meeting? So that you can really figure out that the application that you're going to eventually sell or the solution is really going to cater to that company's needs. And then a fully managed service. And the best example here would be, even though BT had done it with IBM, would be exactly what Bharti did. It came to a lot of people in India as a major surprise that why has Bharti just given its network out to IBM? Well, that's not rocket science. Because what the sales guy did, a very smart guy, figured out something. And let me tell you what he figured out. He figured out that I need to have insider status. And that means he was talking to some very interesting board directors. Because if you look at this entire thing at the top, you'll be meeting different people along the journey. You'll either just meet a telecoms manager, a finance manager, an engineering manager, a finance department, or the board of directors. And imagine someone walking into Sunil Mittal and saying, your network is costing you $1 billion to run. That is not your core competence. Your core competence is to ensure that the customer that you've got has got the best experience when he picks that phone up. Whether it's through a voice call, or whether it's through a data application, whether it's email, or whether it's a video application. That is what you're good at, and that is exactly what you should manage. Let me, IBM, manage that entire relationship for you. So now what they've done is they've gone in and said, we know who the customer is, and the customer today is Airtel. We know who their competition is. It's Reliance, it's Tata. But we also know that their customers are the subscribers. And we know that each of those have different touch points. The relationship here is a completely different relationship. This is where one of these guys can pick up the phone on a Sunday at 9 o'clock and speak to Sonia Mittal. And you know why? Because they are changing the strategic direction of that business. And if you noticed what happened, it had a massive impact in their share price. And that is all Sonia Mittal is interested in. And that is all the companies that we were dealing with, like Vodafone in the UK, was exactly and precisely this. So you have to learn to move up that value chain, and I'll also tell you how to get to the board. When I was 23 years old, I was selling at board level because I was using tactics, and I was very hungry to go and do that. And obviously I've learned from my mistakes, but I realized what was working and what wasn't working. And I know there's a lot of startups here, and I know there's a lot of young guys here, and I know they want to try and meet the board directors to try and get their products sold. And I know exactly the problem that they face, which is they meet the procurement manager. So I'm going to show you how to get to that next level. Sorry, I was going to give you an e-commerce example. And that e-commerce example would be, you could have someone like, let's take Yatra, for example. Imagine when they just did tickets. The way I look at it was that they just wanted to be considered. Will you buy an airline ticket from me? Then what they started doing was, they started saying, actually, we need to move up the value chain. We want to do packages. That's when they started going for, let's try and make a sale here. Let's make that sale interesting. And most likely, if we can make it really interesting and provide an experience, we're probably going to get repeat customers. And let me tell you how they arrived into that fourth box. Because they went and approached corporate companies and said to those corporate companies, we will manage your corporate travel desk. It's as simple as that. Okay? Right, so what truly makes, in my opinion, and remember this is my opinion, what's the DNA of a true sales professional? It's very simple. They know exactly what to sell. It's obvious, isn't it? Go and sell me a bottle of Coke. Go and sell me a telephone system. I saw a couple of demos here. Go and sell me this mobile application. You know what, guys? It's honestly not about that. I figured out that the secret was very, very simple. You've got to sell yourself. People buy people. They don't buy anything else, they buy you. And if you can do that and you can master that, I promise you, people will buy you. And I'll show you what they will do in order for them to buy you. You've got to be likable, you've got to be hungry. I'm about to show you all of that now. I often come across a lot of people that say, you know what, Paul, I'm a really good sales guy. Or I'm a master at this. For me, it was really simple. My family's always told me this. I feel I'm very confident, and I think if you're going to be a really successful salesperson, you have to be very confident. You have to know a lot of things. You have to be able to know how to shake the hand. I had someone in my office about 5 weeks ago, and I was walking him through this, and he said, just tell me that little trick, Paul. How do you do it? And I think there's a couple of people I met today, and I did exactly that, and it does make a difference, and perhaps when you meet me, I'll show you, if you get the time. But you really do need self-belief and passion. Trust me, it's not going to come if you do not have that passion. There's a lot of startups here, and I can tell you, I started my first business when I was 17 years old, and I used to get up 5 in the morning, probably not sleeping till about, say, 2 in the morning, because that's the passion and the confidence and the belief that I had in that business. And that's what you've got to do. You've really, really got to believe in it. You've got to believe in the whole ecosystem, which I'm about to demonstrate. And I then call that AFE. I wake up, you may not want to do this, by the way, but honestly, I wake up every morning and I say it 5 times. I can, I can, I can, I can, I can. It's all about a can-do attitude. I will, I will, I will. I must, I must, I must. I surround myself with positive energy. I made a very simple decision in my life very early on, the amount of money I wanted and the cars that I wanted to drive, etc. And I do that because I wanted it. Everyone in this room may not want that. That's fine. So the first thing that I did was I molded myself and I gave myself an attitude. That's what that E stands for. And you've got to have that attitude. The second thing that you need is that focus. So once you've got the attitude, you can say, right, what are the 1 or 2 things that I'm going to focus on? Because I can tell you, I've met many interesting entrepreneurs. I remember when I bought Coofs, the private sales. I met all these companies and I realized that they were very, very passionate on what they wanted to do. They had some great ideas, but remember, we're here to make money. So it was about saying, I like your attitude, but now we need to focus you on 1 or 2 things. No more than that. Just focus on those 1 or 2 things. And if you focus on those 1 or 2 things, the final letter, E, will come, which is called execution. I guarantee it, the amount of VCs or angel investors that you will meet will always tell you 2 things. What are you focusing on, and what are you going to execute? It's always execution, execution, execution. So if you have the right attitude, you wake up in the morning, you know the 2 things you're going to focus on, I promise you, you will absolutely execute. Believe in the company, the propositions, the values, and the teams. I know too many people that work for a company and they actually bitch the company. It's really horrible working at this company. They don't pay us well. They didn't give us a pay rise. I don't really believe in their product. Trust me, for the startups here and the entrepreneurs, those are the people you definitely do not want to employ. The people you want to employ are the ones that are really going to believe in your product, are going to understand that sometimes you're going to have to make changes. Because sometimes they don't understand change, but that's where you need to hold their hands and you need to tell them that we are going to make the change. But I need you to be with me, and I need that belief. And trust me, working in a blue chip company like Siemens and BT, the amount of changes every single quarter, you're either in a new division, you're either in a new job, and you're thinking, what is going on here? But the smart guys know that I need to remain completely focused, because you know what? The guys at the top know exactly what they're doing. You got to have the hunger. Trust me. You have really got to have the hunger. When I was 23, and I got my first job with Siemens, I realized something. I saw the sales director at a conference like this in London pull up in a lovely car. Excellent suit, and I thought, God, I've got to have one of those. How do I get that? And I decided to step out of my comfort zone. I made a shopping list and said, I've got to move away and out of my parents' house, and I've got to take my own mortgage. I want to wear these suits, and this many times I'm going to change my wardrobe, and I want to go on 2 holidays internationally every year, and I want to be seen in these clubs or restaurants once a month. And I figured out one very simple thing. What's it going to cost to have that? And then I realized, what is my basic salary? And what is the commission that I need to go out and earn to make that money. And in Siemens, when I started my career, as a trainee sales executive, going around the road, trying to sell telephone systems, and it was a tough job, I made one choice. And they used to have what was known as the 100% club, which means if you've done 100%, you're in the 100% club. And there was only 4 or 5 people that would ever make that. You've got to make a choice. Do not be in the 100% club, trust me. I have a problem when people come up to me and say, Paul, what do you think of my plan? And I often say, the problem I've got is it's too big. They go, what? Yeah, it's too big. What do you mean, Paul? I think the plan should be massive. You've got to stretch them. And you've got to go for that 150%, 200% club. And you can do it because you've just got to have the hunger. You've just got to go out of that comfort zone. So again, those startups, I know for a fact, are probably already doing it because they know what it's like. They are working those long hours. They are probably going out there and trying to find as many customers as possible. But please make sure that when you're working with your sales force, and some of the things I'll show you here, especially the suspecting and the prospecting, try and put some of those disciplines in that will help you provide and give you better efficiency. This, again, is very personal, which is dream big. You've got to have a strategic prize that you want to shoot for. So think of Sunil Mittal. His strategic prize was to have $1 billion business plus. There are other people that are setting up e-commerce businesses and they're only thinking valuation, which is not the right thing to do, by the way. There are other businesses that are thinking, I just need to break even. That's fine, but shoot for it. Be proactive, be professional, articulate and punctual. I think one thing that I've learned in India is, there's nothing against Indians, I'm an Indian by the way, but I was just born in the UK, is one thing that I'm very used to in the West, and I'm sure if there's any Western people here will probably agree with me, if they say 9 o'clock, you're there 9 o'clock. And normally and often, you're sitting in reception at 8:45. In India, it's kind of different. You arrive, I remember the first time I arrived at my meeting in Delhi, I thought, God, this guy's going to be proud. I'm 8:45, told the secretary, I'm here for the 9 o'clock meeting. She goes, fine, no problems, just wait. Bloody hell. I think it was 10 o'clock by the time these guys met me. And I realized it was a cultural thing. But honestly, to impress customers, you've got to be there on time. And even with all my businesses that I run, I'm very disciplined because I do want to meet people on time. And if my meeting's overrunning, I actually tell the people we're going to have to reconvene because my meeting's overrunning and I need to meet the next people. Or I'll personally come out and tell the next people, please wait 5 minutes. And I think that's a very, very important touch. Why? That may be your customer, that may be your supplier, that may be your investor one day. That may be the same guy that may be consuming your services. This is what got me to the boardroom. How did I go and see a managing director or a chairman? Because I spoke his language at a very early age. How did I learn that? By reading the right newspapers, the Financial Times, by looking at the news channels and the proper news channels, and by learning about that specific industry, by learning what EBITDA meant, by learning what market share meant, by learning what PAT meant, by learning some of the key strategic verbs that they perhaps used in their industry, and realizing, and if you ever watch this, watch how a chairman on a conference call or a chief executive or a marketing director actually talk. Their grammar is completely different. And if you can master that, and obviously you'll use it in different environments. I mean, I don't use that with my team, but I use it certainly if I'm having a conference call or I'm meeting investors or whoever I might be meeting, then I think that dialogue definitely has to change. And I think the startups should certainly try and figure out how to learn that. Team players, network. This is a really important one. A real good sales guy is absolutely going to listen. And I'll tell you a little trick here and how you'll know how to communicate value. The art is to get the other guy to talk. I never knew it until I was taught by Siemens in 1988. The guy looked at me and says, okay, one of the key things now, Paul, as part of your training is we're going to teach you how to get the other guy to talk. And it was really simple. So tell me, John, this is a family business. What's the market share like that you seem to have achieved over the last year? I've noticed in the statements that it's now growing year on year at 25%. That must be a great feeling. In fact, it is, Paul, blah, 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 blah. So how did you evolve as a business? And what you're realizing is that every entrepreneur loves talking about their business. And your job as a sales guy is to listen and probe even further. You're like a detective. You're going in there, okay, how did that happen? So why did you do that? What were the pain points? Okay, and when you chose your vendors, what made you choose that particular vendor? And I promise you, you'll realize something, that they're actually giving you the secrets away. They're telling you. Well, what we typically do, Paul, is we have a decision committee, and that decision committee meet once a quarter, and when they meet once a quarter, they're effectively figuring out what are the investments that we're going to make, both for OPEX and CAPEX. Oh, that's interesting. And who out of interest sits on that decision committee? Oh, well, we have this guy that's been working with our company for about 5 years. What's his interests? And it's amazing, they actually share that information. So I think some of the startups here need to really start working with some of the promoters that they're going to meet to really encourage that dialogue. And I think you'll realize what people actually do reveal. And a really smart guy knows when to walk away. I've often done it. And I'm going to show you when to walk away. I've actually walked away in a deal right at the very end when he's making his decision and we're in a negotiation point. I've also walked away at the very beginning. And I'm going to also share that with you. Right. One of the key things is that when you go and sell, and think about this if you're a startup out here, because this is about your positioning statement, how you want to be perceived and how you're going to position yourselves. How do you link your specific attributes to a positioning statement? Because this is exactly how you're going to sell your value add to the customer. So they are typically always around three things: quality, service, and cost. Okay, so if I give you examples, fairly obvious. Airlines today, Qatar offer you a fantastic quality once you're on their airline, excellent planes, wide seats, etc. Virgin are absolutely known for excellent service. Cost, someone like EasyJet in the West. So if I was to give you examples in India, I'd probably say the first two would be Jet, and the cost one would probably be someone like Spice or Indigo. A retailer, again, Harrods. For quality, service will be someone like Sainsbury's, and for cost, it'll always be someone like Tesco's. So imagine now if you were selling something to one of these suppliers, or customers, sorry. You would kind of know how they're going to tackle this, because this tells you another little secret. What it tells you is possibly who their customer base is, and the disposable income that customer base may have. Right, so a common sales cycle versus a consultative approach. What do most typical people do? When they start, they go in, they qualify the need, they open the sale, they present, they handle the objections, and they either close or lose. That either happens in a day, that either happens right on the phone, depending on what you're selling, or that may even take 4 to 5 weeks. Now, what's the difference? The real guy is going to go in and he's going to really qualify the need and himself. And I will give you a real example here. One of the businesses that I run is Benefits Plus. It probably serves today in India about 1 million employees for a reward and recognition engine. And one of the things that we do, and I've taught all my sales guys to do this, is to make sure that you qualify that customer and you qualify ourselves that do we really want this opportunity? And that's what they used to forget before, but now what we do, we're very disciplined, making sure before we walk in, are we really understanding what we want? We also try to learn who's who. So in other words, the entire structure, both horizontally and vertically, of that organization, extremely important. And the competitive landscape, not only theirs, but ours, because we think that's extremely important. What is the sales strategy and how are we going to map that? And I'll share that with you so that you actually understand what sales strategy is. Where are we going to open? Are we going to open this at the highest level, the middle level, or perhaps the low level? Are we going to go in and re-qualify that opportunity? A lot of people, when they go for their second meeting, completely forget to re-qualify that opportunity. And that's where the fundamental mistake is happening, because you've assumed something. It's always good to recheck back. Have you still got that budget? Is the decision committee still the same? Has your business drivers changed? Are there any new requirements for the application? And the reason that you want to do that is because you want to assist in helping write the SOR, the Statement of Requirements. Because many companies around the world typically say, I have an RFP or I have an RFQ. Can you please respond to this? Guess what? The big boys like IBM, HP, Microsoft, BT, SAP, etc., are all helping their clients write those RFQs and RFPs. And there's very interesting techniques that they use to do that, because they are setting the traps and the mines for the competition. I've done it. It's happened to me. But I've used it in India, in some of the things that I've been doing, and trust me, it's always worked. You've got to identify influencers. Again, a big mistake that a lot of people make. They think that I've met the decision maker, but actually, you know what? He may be the decision maker. What's a decision maker? A decision maker is perhaps someone that just says yes or no. But who is the real influencer? It's like often when you take a life insurance policy, your wife will play a very, very large role in that. So try and identify who those people are. You're going on a holiday with your family. Your children are going to be the influencers. What hotel are you going to stay in? What resorts you're going to go to? Re-qualify, set the sales strategy, and then deploy it. Present the proposal, handle the objections, accelerate and de-accelerate, I'm going to talk about, negotiate, close, or walk away, and basically provide ongoing account management. That is the true sales cycle of a really smart guy. And that's exactly what he's going to be doing, because along each one of those, he has already decided, what am I going to do at this particular point? So that when he goes to an opportunity, he does not get surprised. So how do we, in Benefits Plus or BT or any of these companies, how did we plan? The first thing that we did was to really try and get some interesting facts. So again, there's a couple of startups here that we're talking about business applications. Okay, and again, if you're a startup, I'll tell you why this is also interesting. If you're looking to raise money, kind of say to yourself, hold on, let me just ask myself questions about my business, because I'm going to probably go out there and raise some money for myself, and I'm sure the VC or the angel investor is probably going to ask me, what do you actually offer? Who is your competition? Etc., etc. So re-qualify the other way as well. Okay, so interesting things here is not only do you need to find out everything around the top. So when we approached Vodafone, and Vodafone was fairly new in the United Kingdom, One of the key things that BT did was to say, okay, what are the key services that are actually offered by this customer and who to? Who is their customer? Okay, it's a mobile end user, it's just a normal subscriber. When they established in 1984, what are the different things that they've done and how have they actually evolved as a business? Have they evolved quickly, slowly? Have they lost money? Have they done it through mergers and acquisitions? How have they done it? Start looking at their year-on-year growth, financial numbers, customer base. Now, do you remember me talking to you, how do you get to the board? How do I go meet a marketing director or a chairman or a vice chairman or whatever it may be? It's because I completely understand those numbers. And I've now started talking their language. Who is their biggest competitors? What's the organizational structure top down? What is their overall strategy? And I'll tell you where you'll pick all this information up from, because you're probably thinking, how do you get that information? What are the business drivers and what's actually hurting them? Vodafone at one point was saying, we are losing money. We have got to consolidate. Because broadband is coming, wireless is coming, that is coming, there is going to be true convergence of communications. How does our service compare versus the competition? One of the key things that BT used to do was to say, we know that we've got services in here, but how do we really compare against the competition? And we've also just done some customer satisfaction surveys, and let's actually find out what's come out of those surveys. How much perceived value can you really add versus the competition? And what's the relationship like that you have inside that organization with the influencers, with the decision makers, and with anyone else to give you information about the decision makers or the influencers versus the competition? So every time you're thinking BT or Infosys or any of these big large corporates like Wipro are having very expensive golf days, that's the key reason they're doing it, because they know we need to continuously build relationships with our customers and our suppliers. And when we take them to a golf event or whatever we've taken them to, what we're actually doing is we're not just entertaining them, but we're actually trying to find out, has anything changed in that company? Is the strategy going to change? And trust me, there are people that are going to start talking. And that's when you start realizing, because it's all part of the game. It's a big game out there, trust me. Okay, so now we're going to work out the tactics that we're going to use. So again, anything that I do today in any of my businesses that are service related or B2Bs, what we do is we say, do we have a valuable proposition that's actually linkable and adds value to the customer's business objectives? Because if it doesn't, we're not interested. How do we actually intend to differentiate, and what will the USPs be? Who will be our key competitor and the size of the opportunity that we're actually chasing? Sometimes you realize you're investing so much money and it's not even worth pursuing that particular opportunity. Can we compete? Are we aligned to win? So do I have the right people that I can talk to? Do we know who the decision makers are and the key influencers? What could be the possible showstoppers? On every review, Monday morning, 8:30 sharp, that's a key question that I ask all of my sales team. What is that one showstopper that you think that could stop this deal going ahead? What sales tactics do we use? Is it direct, is it indirect, or is it divisional? So what does direct mean? Direct means, very simply, that I am selling the same product at the same price, exactly what the competition is doing. I am going head to head. So the smart guys now figure out, what am I going to do to go indirect? And there are tactics for indirect. Because now you're going to start changing the entire ground rules. This is when you're now going to start laying the mines and the traps. And trust me, they genuinely exist. These aren't words that are made up. and divisional. I've decided that I can't win this entire opportunity. I don't have the resources. So Paul asked me, in my opportunity, do I have the resources to win this opportunity? A typical bid in BT on $100 million would probably cost $10 million just to bid. That's the team that's required, that's the technical team, the writing of that, the commercial people, all the trips that you have to fly back and forth, the video conferences that you have. People think, oh, it's not costing anything. It's $10 million, just to give you an idea. And the bid manager has to figure that out. What's it going to cost? Is it still worth pursuing this? And that happens immediately. And that's when we then decide, you know what, we're probably not going to win this whole thing. We're only going to win this piece here. But you know what, we're very strong here, so we think we should go for this piece. And finally, every single Monday morning, 8:30, at around 9:30, the final question I ask the team, what help do you need from me? Paul, I need you to go and open this door. Paul, I need you to go and influence this guy. Paul, can you help me here? I may not have all those contacts, but I certainly do know one thing. I'm going to try and do my best to reach out to people that may know some of those influencers. And that's where the network then really comes in. So impact selling. How do you really make an impression? Like I said, people really buy people, and I'll tell you why they buy you. Because you understand that customer inside out, okay, and outside in. So, so important. You know their numbers, you know their market share, you know who their competitors are, you know what's hurting them, you know what their business drivers are, you know where they're going to be. They're probably looking to expand in Asia Pac in the next 2 years, or 6 months, or 3 months, whatever it may be. You know the culture of their people, etc. And then obviously how your proposition can make a difference to the top and bottom line. Absolutely key. Now I talked about mines and traps, and basically this is all they are. And I've used them, and they actually work. Very simple. So a mine is, and a trap is, imagine asking a customer, because you have a particular feature that could make a difference. So you could say, hey, Mr. Customer, if I could offer you this particular feature, because you know now that the competition doesn't offer that feature, would this one feature make a difference to your bottom line and perhaps your top line? Would it make you more efficient? Actually, Paul, I didn't think about that. That's a very interesting point. Well, you know what, Mr. Customer? I think it would, because I've analyzed all of your numbers and I've noticed that you're growing at 25% per annum. And I think this one additional feature could absolutely help you do this. That makes a significant difference. So you've just laid a trap. An accelerator is very simple. Whenever you go and meet a customer, and they're saying to you, okay, we're about to make the decision, and you're coming on the day of the decision, we're going to have 3 presentations, and at 5 o'clock, we're going to make the announcement. And the best example I'm going to give you here is one with Bharti, Airtel. I used to have a value-added services business, which I later on sold. And have you heard of an application called Music on Demand, which Airtel launched, which became the largest music application? Okay. That application, Airtel decided that they were going to take that to a bid. And there were only 2 bidders. It was Celebrum, who acquired one of the businesses I had, and it was on mobile. So I came in fact this was my first week when they acquired the business, and said, Paul, can you help us, because this could really change our lives, this application. It could really make our revenue numbers go up. And I said, okay. So I'm with the promoter of the business, a guy called Dilip Modi, Dr. B.K. Modi's son. And I said, let me figure out the sales strategy. So I did. So we figured that out. And we got a phone call to say, okay. And it was a very dear friend of mine, Yatin Bawa. And he said to me, hi, Paul, is it okay if we see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock? And I said, no. I said, I'm really sorry. I can't see you at 10 o'clock because I've got a doctor's appointment. Because I knew exactly why he was asking me that. I couldn't say I have a meeting, because if I have a meeting with a customer or a supplier, that would have changed the whole game. But I had to use a slightly emotional excuse that he would understand, and he did. And he said, okay, what time would be good for you? And I said, what time is the other party coming in? I didn't mention their name, but someone already told me there was another party. And he said, well, what I will do, Paul, is I'll change the other party to 10 o'clock, so why don't you come in at 12 o'clock? Okay. I said, is there anyone else coming in? So I tell you what, why don't we make it 1 o'clock? He said, okay, 1 o'clock it is. So I had to check that there was no one else coming in. He said, done. I said, are you still making the decision at 5 o'clock? He said, yes, we are. I said, okay, great. We arrive at the office, and there was a guy with me, and first day out with me, he was the account director for Airtel. And I said to him, I'll tell you what's going to happen when we walk into that room. And he said, what? There is going to be a marking sheet. He said, what's a marking sheet? They're going to mark you on your presentation, communication skills, and more importantly, they're going to mark us on the proposition meeting their requirement and the financial numbers. Probably about 4 or 5 things. And we are going to get scored. He said, no, don't be silly, Paul. I said, I promise you. Probably about 12:15, on mobile, walk out. And I knew the competition, they knew me, we shook hands. Never knock your competition, trust me. Never ever badmouth your competition. We politely met, good luck, best wishes, and we walked straight in, and we started presenting. And I realized something, that they're going to make a decision today, and I now need to accelerate the sale. It's a tactic. That's exactly what we did. So we laid the traps, we knew that they were about to make a decision, and we said, in order to accelerate that sale, if we can offer you, because this is when it all came down to commercials, and they said, what are the commercials that you're offering? And I had a hunch what the other party was offering. And we said, this is the price that we're going to offer. And guess what? We were more expensive. And the guy next to me said, you know what, Paul, we're going to lose this bid. I said, trust me, you won't lose the bid. We provided a better price, but we provided superior service. And the way that we accelerated that sale was very simple. We had a partner called Infosys. I know they're on mobile's partner as well, but we needed a true technology partner to integrate this across 23 circles. And what we did to accelerate that sale was, I knew that they had to make that service go live because everything was tested a week later. They said, Paul, whoever goes with us has got to hit that plug tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock to make it start. And I, without the competition knowing, which was not even part of my presentation, presented the project plan. They didn't expect a project plan. We presented the project plan. We speeded up the sale. They realized that we had everything. At 5 o'clock, we got that deal. And just to give you a realization of the value of that deal, that did, in its first month, 20 CR. Music on demand across 23 circles, and it peaked at around 35 per month. Thank you. For the Americans or Western guys, I think 20 CR is about $5 million. And that particular product became the #1 music application across Asia, across the world, and won the GSMA award of the most downloaded music application. And we did brilliant. And that was because we used these tactics. The second tactic is, slightly when you know that the competition is ahead, you now need to urgently put the foot on the brake. And I've done this. I've realized, you know what, I'm losing this one. I'm now going to have to change the ground rules. I'm going to have to tell the customer that, hey, this feature is really important to you. What you're telling, because I can tell, he keeps telling me, Paul, I need this, I need that, and it looks like that you haven't got that feature. That is when I'm slowing it down to say, right, if I can come back to you within 24 hours, because I know he's going to make the decision that day, and I know that I can probably give you a far more superior service, are you happy with everything else? Yes, I am, Paul. So if I could give you these 2 or 3 things, would that be okay if I could come back tomorrow or the day after to try and win that opportunity? And trust me, they say yes. Why? Because they've built that relationship with you. And I'm going to show you how they do that. It's this slide. 3 typical sales guys. Okay? And if you've ever done it, watch this. When you walk in, He's just meeting you for the first time. So with all three guys, his interest level with all three is going to be fairly high. Hi, nice meeting you, Paul. Hi, Tom. Hi, Satish. So we'll go to the very bottom guy first. What this guy has decided to do is he feels he's got an opportunity. But you know what? He's too busy. He's decided, I'm probably going to call this customer back up probably in about 2 weeks. He's just too busy. So he calls him back in 2 weeks. And when he calls him, the interest level slightly goes up with that customer. Then the next guy, he comes in and he rings up the client maybe a week later. And he says, hi, I've got your proposal ready. Can I have an appointment, please? Yep. Come and see me next week. Here. Now I'll show you what a good sales guy does. He comes in, and the next day, or the same day, he sends an email. A polite email, thank you very much for meeting us. A week later, or a few days later, he phones. And I'll tell you why. Because he's now requalifying. I just want to check a couple of things so that when we provide the requirement, we want to make sure it absolutely meets your requirement and we provide the best service and the solution, hopefully the best price. That is when you've started building that relationship. Then again, on the third one, Mr. Customer, we'd like to arrange a demo, or would you like to come over and see what we can do and what we've done for other people? So you're constantly keeping these guys engaged. And one of the companies, as I said, I run, a reward and recognition company, and we deal with HR directors, sales directors, CEOs. We are constantly engaging with these guys on a regular basis, and I think that's very, very important to do. I'm just going to race down this one. Okay. I meet too many people that say to me, I've won the bid. What do you mean you've won the opportunity? I've won the opportunity, Paul, because he's told me that we're going to get the order. Well, when did he tell you that? Well, yesterday, or today, or an hour ago. Has he signed anything? No. But I promise you, Paul, he's going to sign it tomorrow. He's not going to sign anything. Tell me it's a win when he's actually signed it, because that's the most important piece of paper. That's what pays the bills. And so what I do with my team is I effectively have this, and it really works, and you can build it into Excel spreadsheets, okay? And I then sit with my team, and on Excel, I can flick on all the 20%, all the 30%, all the 75s, all the 85s, and all the 100s. And you know what? Every month I can see what's changing. So fact-finding, as far as I'm concerned, that's part of your daily job. Then once you've found the facts, you can tell me whether you've got a need, 20% qualify it, 30% define the SOR, the Statement of Requirements, and perhaps help write the RFQ. 40% present a bid. I've had so many people then, 50% used to say, I've presented the bid, Paul, but I think there's a 75% chance of me winning this now. I'm saying, no way. There's still a 50-50 chance. That is just an emotional feel. It's happened to me. I've seen it. I thought I was going to win that bid. I had a brilliant relationship. I lost it. 75% is a letter of intent. I've seen too many people celebrate and bring their champagne bottles out when they've got a letter of intent. It means nothing. Because now the real negotiation starts. The day that contract gets signed is when a business manager or a chief executive or the financial director really needs to say, you know what, we've won this, because now in 30 days, hopefully we're going to see some money in the bank, because that's what makes the difference. Final slide, which is what I believe, and I've seen, are the common mistakes that salespeople make. They actually don't listen. I've been in an environment, both in the West and in India, where the customers actually said, in one case, and it was a telephone system, can I have it in, does this come in grey? And if so, can I have it next week? Which is almost like saying, I want to go ahead. And in India, a case where the customer said, is there a contract that I can sign today? And the guy just yabbled on about something else. And that's because they choose not to listen. So you've really got to listen very, very, very carefully at what are they actually trying to say. And if you don't understand it, just say, can you just rephrase that? Or is this what you meant? Do not second guess. Requalify, honestly requalify. I've seen too many opportunities that too many people make assumptions. It happens to us as well. And you've got to constantly requalify those opportunities. Ask for the order. There's so many people afraid that just don't know how to ask for the order. Just look the guy in the eye and just say, can I have the order, please? It's as simple as that, honestly. They know why you're there. It's all about winning business. Negotiate. Customer says, I'm ready to go ahead, 50% discount. Yes, I'm ready. What? Who has given you the authority to give a 50% discount away? Or a 10% discount? Did you figure out whether we're going to make any money out of this? I've had cases in my own company where the sales director has walked in and said, we've won that bid. Fantastic, well done, congratulations. And then when it comes to the books, by the way, Paul, I had to give a 10% discount. Hold on, stop. 10%. My dear friend, just look at the impact that that 10% has. It was not agreed in our 8:30 Monday morning meetings, because, and I'll tell you why they're important, because you will have strategic deals. And a strategic deal has a budget. And that's where that budget has to come out of. And you may not have a budget to support that. So there's no point winning a piece of business if you're going to lose money on it. Walk away. Honestly, you've got to learn to walk away. I've walked away right at the very beginning when I've realized that they're actually just benchmarking me, because you're going to figure out immediately the questions that they're asking. So Paul, tell me, what is the base price on this? So Paul, just tell me all the features on this. They've not yet once told me about their application or their needs. They're just trying to figure everything out from me. And at that point I'm thinking, you know what, I'm not going to win anything here. And I've already been warned anyway. I've also walked away on a signing ceremony. It was 150 video conferencing systems for a company called Wickers in the United Kingdom. It was a software engineering business who were doing components for Rolls-Royce, and they wanted all these video conferencing systems. And we were signing around 2:30 in the afternoon in London, this big contract which would have been worth to us about $25 million. And on the very last day, as we were about to go, about half an hour before, the commercial director called me of that company to one side and said, we need to have a 10% discount. And I had the authority to either give it or not. And trust me, I knew I couldn't. Because I knew if I had signed that 10% off, BT would have lost about £5.5 million in that first year. And I would have never ever had recovered on that money. How do I know that? Because we'd already done what is known as sensitivities. Your bid manager does that for you. So we walked away. We didn't sign it. Everything was prepared, the press, everything. But you have to learn to do that. You know, I've seen this. It's happened with us as well in Benefits Plus. We won some amazing accounts in the beginning, and then we started going in and chasing everything else, and realized that the first 5 accounts that we had won, like Wipro, like Airtel, like DLF Primerica, and a few others, completely forgot about those. Until we got a wake-up call one morning, which was that the customer threatened to say, please take your service out of our office. We do not want a reward and recognition system. You have not delivered upon the promise. And that is because when I personally went in and sat with the HR director to find out what was going on, very simple. Your team did not follow up. Here are all the email exchanges, Paul, and we've not had a single revert. since the day of the launch, which was 3 months ago. That was completely disgraceful. So one thing I would urge, especially the startups, your first few customers are going to be the most important customers. Please, please just keep making sure that you're holding their hand, that you're constantly calling them, you're checking that are they happy with the service. And you know what, you are going to get some customers that are not happy with the service. Find out why they're not happy. Be honest with them as well. Tell them, look, we've had a problem, a technical problem, a people's problem. People have left our organization. We don't have those skill sets yet, but we really want your business. If you communicate and talk to them, they will understand, I promise you. If you do not, and you have this void, I promise you, that's when the problems really start. Okay? So thank you very much for giving me this time, and I hope you found this useful. Thank you.